Good evening, everyone. Have you ever wondered why some environments thrive while others struggle? Why some teams outperform all odds and others collapse under the slightest pressure? The answer lies in something so simple, so obvious that we often overlook it: behavior. Now, here's the thing about human behavior: it doesn't just happen. People don't act based on logic or rules, they act based on incentives, on what they see and feel is valued. Behavior is shaped by what we reward, not by what we demand. It's easy to tell people what to do: work harder, be more creative, collaborate better, and take more initiative. These are common instructions or expectations set by leaders, managers, or even peers in professional environments. At home, we tell kids, be kind or study harder. The demand for a specific behavior or result is clear. But here's the reality: just because we say something doesn't mean it's going to happen. Words alone don't inspire action or shape behavior. What truly drives behavior is what we reward, whether through praise, recognition, or even subtle cues of approval. Humans are hardwired to seek validation. From the earliest stages of life, we look for signs that our actions are being seen, appreciated, or valued. A baby smiles, and a parent claps or cheers. That positive reinforcement teaches the baby to smile more because the reaction feels good. The pattern continues as we grow, though the reinforcements might change. In a school setting, students may work harder on assignments when they're acknowledged for effort, whether through a teacher's kind words or a good grade. In the workplace, employees are more likely to take ownership or tackle challenges when they feel their contributions are noticed and appreciated. But when behaviors go unacknowledged or unrewarded, or when the wrong behaviors are rewarded, we create an entirely different dynamic. Take a typical office scenario as an example. A manager encourages the team to work collaboratively, saying collaboration is the key to success. However, when promotions and rewards are handed out, they consistently go to individuals who achieve results by hoarding information or focusing only on their work. Over time, what do you think happens to the team's behavior? Do people lean more into collaboration, or do they start mimicking the actions of those being rewarded? It's clear they adjust to what's rewarded, not to what's been demanded of them. What's fascinating is that most people don't consciously intend to reward the wrong behaviors. They're often well-meaning but unaware of the message their actions are sending. For instance, imagine a parent telling their child to value honesty but reacting harshly when the child admits to a mistake. The child learns very quickly that being truthful might not be worth the risk if it results in punishment, rather than understanding that the intended message, honesty is important, gets overshadowed by the unintended reinforcement that hiding the truth might be the safer option. Rewarding behavior isn't just about tangible rewards like promotions, pay raises, or gifts. It's also about emotional rewards, the subtle signs we give that say, this matters and you're doing it right. A simple thank you, a word of encouragement, or a public acknowledgement can often mean as much or even more than a monetary bonus. People need to feel that their efforts align with the values of the environment they're in, whether it's a workplace, a community, or a family. That alignment comes when the behaviors they exhibit are recognized and reinforced consistently. It's worth noting that the absence of acknowledgement can also act as reinforcement, but in the wrong way. When positive actions are ignored, they diminish over time. Why would someone go out of their way to help others, contribute new ideas, or go the extra mile if it feels like nobody notices or cares? Silence can be a powerful communicator, and if people sense that their efforts don't matter, they will eventually stop mattering them. The reverse is also true. When destructive behaviors, like gossiping or cutting corners, are tolerated, those behaviors grow even if they aren't explicitly rewarded. Simply allowing them to persist sends the message that they're acceptable. The question then becomes, how intentional are we being with the behavior we reinforce? It's easy to get caught up in focusing on results, deadlines, or outcomes. And while those things are important, they don't happen in a vacuum. Results come from processes, and those processes are built on behaviors. If we reward shortcuts, we get more shortcuts. If we reward effort and teamwork, even when the outcomes are imperfect, we set a foundation for long-term success. Think about the environments you're part of, whether it's a workplace, social group, or your home. Reflect on how behaviors are rewarded there. Is hard work consistently recognized, or is it expected without acknowledgement? Are people praised for the values they demonstrate or only for the results they achieve? There's often a gap between what we say we value and what we actively reward. Bridging that gap is where the real work lies, and it begins with paying attention to the subtle signals we send every day. Once we recognize the power of rewarding behavior, it's impossible to ignore its impact. What we acknowledge, praise, and highlight shapes not only individual actions, but the culture of entire groups. Our rewards act like a mirror, reflecting what we value most. That reflection is what guides behavior far more effectively than any rulebook or directive ever could. Rewarding the wrong behaviors leads to the culture you don't want. It's a simple truth, but one we often overlook in our workplaces, communities, and families. Whether intentional or not, the things we acknowledge, celebrate, or allow to persist shape the culture around us. When we reward behaviors that undermine trust, collaboration, or integrity, we create environments where those very traits flourish, even if they are not what we desire. Understanding this dynamic is crucial because culture isn't built by what we intend, it's built by what we reinforce. Consider a sales team where performance is measured solely by individual results. The highest achievers are rewarded with bonuses, recognition, or promotions, regardless of the methods they use to reach their targets. Over time, people start noticing that behaviors like withholding critical information, undercutting colleagues, or prioritizing short-term wins over long-term relationships are what lead to success. Those actions may not align with the team's stated values, but they've become normalized because they are rewarded. Without realizing it, leadership has created a culture where personal gain trumps teamwork, eroding the foundation of trust and collaboration they might have been striving to build. The insidious nature of rewarding the wrong behaviors lies in its subtlety. Rarely is it a blatant decision to encourage bad behavior. Instead, it happens through neglect, inconsistency, or a narrow focus on outcomes. Imagine a manager who praises employees for hitting deadlines, but ignores how they achieve them. Maybe someone consistently cuts corners, bypassing quality checks, or relies on colleagues to clean up their mistakes. The manager may not approve of these tactics, but by rewarding the end result and staying silent on the process, they unintentionally validate the behavior. The message sent is clear. As long as the numbers look good, the methods don't matter. This principle applies beyond the workplace as well. In social groups or families, the dynamics of reinforcement play out just as powerfully. Think of a parent who constantly lectures their child about being kind to others, but then laughs or brushes it off when the child says something unkind or mean-spirited. Without realizing it, the parent is teaching the child that kindness is just a guideline, not a core value. The inconsistency between words and actions leads to confusion and reinforces behaviors that directly contradict what the parent wants to instill. What's crucial to understand is that culture isn't static. It's always evolving based on what's reinforced, tolerated, and rewarded. When organizations or communities begin to experience dysfunction, it's often because of a mismatch between the values they claim to hold and the behaviors they actively reward. That mismatch creates confusion and inconsistency, which can quickly spiral into mistrust and resentment. People begin to operate based on what they see rewarded in practice, not what's written in mission statements or on posters in the break room. One challenge in recognizing and addressing this issue is that the effects of rewarding the wrong behaviors often take time to manifest. At first, it might seem like everything is fine. If results are good, leaders may be reluctant to question the methods being used to achieve them, but over time, the cracks begin to show. High-performing individuals who consistently prioritize teamwork and integrity may feel discouraged or undervalued, choosing to leave rather than compromise their principles. Relationships among team members might fray as trust erodes, and eventually, the very outcomes that were once prioritized begin to suffer because the underlying culture has become toxic. Rewarding the wrong behaviors also creates a ripple effect that's difficult to contain. Once people see that certain actions lead to success, they adjust their own behavior accordingly. This is especially true when those behaviors are reinforced by individuals in positions of authority. The more visible the reward, the more powerful its influence. And when someone is publicly praised or promoted for actions that contradict stated values, it sends a signal to everyone else. This is how you succeed here. And because humans are naturally adaptive, people will start to align their actions with what they perceive as the path to success. It's important to recognize that rewarding the wrong behaviors doesn't always mean giving positive reinforcement for destructive actions. Sometimes it's about what we choose to ignore or leave unaddressed. Failing to hold people accountable sends a message just as loudly as praising them does. When harmful behaviors are met with silence, they're effectively condoned. And over time, people begin to see that there are no consequences for cutting corners, undermining colleagues, or neglecting responsibilities. That absence of accountability is a form of reinforcement, one that's just as damaging as direct praise for the wrong actions. Breaking this cycle requires a level of self-awareness and intentionality that's often difficult, but absolutely necessary. It starts with examining the alignment between values and rewards. Are we rewarding the behaviors that reflect the culture we want, or are we inadvertently fostering the very issues we're trying to avoid? This requires looking beyond surface-level results and paying attention to the processes, relationships, and principles underlying them. When we hold up a mirror to the behaviors we celebrate, we gain clarity about what kind of culture we're truly creating, and whether it aligns with our intentions or undermines them entirely. Small, consistent acts of recognition build trust and reinforce positive actions. In any environment where people interact, whether it's a workplace, a family, or a community, trust is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Trust doesn't form overnight, nor does it arise from grand gestures or occasional rewards. It's a product of the small, everyday interactions that show people they are valued, appreciated, and respected. Recognizing positive actions, no matter how small, is one of the most powerful tools we have to strengthen this trust. Recognition is not about waiting for someone to do something extraordinary or outperform expectations. In fact, tying recognition only to exceptional results can be counterproductive. It may leave people feeling that their everyday contributions, the steady work that keeps things moving forward, aren't seen or valued. That's why the consistency of recognition matters as much as the act itself. When you acknowledge the small positive behaviors, the way someone lends a hand without being asked, approaches a challenge with thoughtfulness, or consistently shows up prepared, you communicate that these actions matter, that they are worth noticing. And humans are deeply motivated by the need for belonging and acknowledgement. Even the most independent among us thrive in environments where our contributions are recognized, no matter how subtle the acknowledgement might be. A quick thank you, a nod of appreciation, or a genuine compliment can go a long way in making someone feel seen. What's more, when someone receives this kind of recognition, it doesn't just boost their morale. It reinforces the behavior, making it more likely they'll continue acting in ways that benefit the team or group. This is not about flattery or empty praise. Empty recognition, offering praise for its own sake without substance, can erode trust rather than build it. People can tell when recognition is insincere, vague, or merely performative. It can leave them feeling that the words were more about fulfilling an obligation than about truly valuing their effort. Real recognition, on the other hand, is specific. It focuses on tangible actions and their impact. For instance, instead of simply saying, "great job," consider saying, "great job on stepping in to help with that last-minute project. It really made a difference to the team." The specificity shows that you are paying attention and that the recognition is genuine. Trust, built through consistent recognition, creates an environment where people feel safe to take initiative, voice their ideas, and step outside their comfort zones. When people know their contributions are noticed, they're more willing to take risks and invest themselves fully in their roles. They feel a sense of ownership and pride in what they do because they trust that their efforts won't be overlooked or taken for granted. In environments where recognition is lacking, the opposite happens. People begin to disengage, questioning whether their hard work or positive actions even matter. A lack of recognition over time can breed resentment, demotivation, and eventually mistrust. Consider the way recognition spreads within a group. When one person's positive actions are acknowledged, it creates a ripple effect. Others see the behavior being valued, and they are often inspired to emulate it. Over time, this consistent reinforcement of good behaviors shapes the culture of the entire group. The culture becomes one where people strive to contribute because they know their efforts are seen and appreciated. Contrast this with a culture where recognition is scarce, inconsistent, or reserved only for a select few. In those environments, people may begin to feel invisible, undervalued, or even competitive, and the trust within the group erodes. One of the beautiful aspects of small, consistent recognition is that it doesn't require grand resources or significant time investments. A heartfelt note of thanks, a moment of public acknowledgement during a meeting, or even a quiet expression of gratitude in a one-on-one conversation can all be incredibly meaningful. The key lies in the intent and frequency. Recognition isn't something that should be saved for special occasions or major milestones. It's most impactful when it becomes a regular part of daily interactions, a habit, rather than an exception. Sometimes people worry that offering too much recognition might lead to complacency or create an environment where people stop striving for excellence. In reality, the opposite is true. When people are recognized for positive actions, they are motivated to do more of what works. Recognition creates a sense of momentum and reinforces behaviors that lead to success. Rather than feeling content to rest on their laurels, people become energized by the validation they receive and are driven to continue contributing to the group's goals. Worth noting that consistency in recognition isn't only about frequency, it's also about fairness. If recognition is given unevenly or perceived as favoritism, it can undermine trust rather than build it. Leaders, parents, or mentors who make an effort to spread their acknowledgement evenly, ensuring that everyone who contributes feels valued, create an environment where trust can flourish. When people believe they are operating on a level playing field and that their contributions matter regardless of their role, they feel safer, more connected, and more willing to engage. Small, consistent acts of recognition might seem insignificant in the moment, but their cumulative effect is transformative. They build trust, reinforce positive behaviors, and create a culture of mutual respect and appreciation. This ripple effect of trust and motivation strengthens the bonds within any group and sets the foundation for long-term success. Focusing on effort and values over outcomes fosters a thriving environment. In a results-driven world, it's easy to see why outcomes get most of the attention. Companies reward the sales numbers, teams celebrate the finished product, parents praise the grade on the report card. On the surface, focusing on outcomes seems logical. They're tangible, measurable, and straightforward to evaluate. But when we exclusively prioritize results, we miss something far more important: the processes, behaviors, and values that drive those outcomes in the first place. Shifting focus to effort and values can change the trajectory of an individual, team, or organization. Effort is often the unsung hero behind every success. It's the time spent brainstorming ideas, learning from mistakes, and trying again after failures. Yet in many cases, effort is overlooked. People may work tirelessly toward a goal, demonstrate resilience in the face of challenges, and embody all the values we claim to care about. But if the final result doesn't meet expectations, that effort goes unrecognized. This not only demotivates individuals, but creates an environment where people are discouraged from taking risks or experimenting for fear that only the end result matters. Values play an equally important role in how individuals approach their work. A thriving environment is built on values like integrity, collaboration, and accountability. When we prioritize these principles over immediate outcomes, we lay the groundwork for long-term success. Consider an employee who chooses to speak up about a potential issue that could derail a project. While raising the concern might delay the timeline in the short term, it reflects courage, honesty, and foresight, all traits that benefit the organization as a whole. Rewarding actions rooted in values sends a clear message that how the work gets done is just as important as what gets accomplished. Outcomes are not always within our control. Effort and values, however, are. When we measure success solely by results, we ignore the external factors that influence them. In a sales environment, for example, an employee's numbers might be affected by market fluctuations, changes in customer preferences, or unforeseen challenges. Meanwhile, another employee might achieve impressive sales figures through unethical tactics or by undermining their colleagues. Focusing only on outcomes creates a system where behaviors that contradict shared values can be rewarded, leading to a culture of shortcuts, mistrust, and competition. By emphasizing effort and values, we create a culture that fosters innovation, collaboration, and resilience. People feel encouraged to take initiative, knowing their efforts will be acknowledged regardless of the immediate result. They are more willing to admit mistakes or ask for help, understanding that the focus is on learning and growth, not perfection. This kind of environment breeds loyalty and engagement because individuals know they are valued for more than just what they produce. The shift to prioritizing effort and values requires intentionality. It starts with changing how we give recognition. When offering praise, consider not only what was achieved, but how it was achieved. Highlight the dedication, creativity, or teamwork involved, even if the final result wasn't exactly as hoped. For instance, a manager might say, "I know the presentation didn't land the way we wanted, but your preparation and the way you rallied the team were remarkable." This kind of acknowledgement not only reinforces positive behaviors, but also fosters trust and motivation. Another critical step is aligning leadership actions with these principles. When leaders focus solely on results, they set a precedent for everyone else to do the same. Conversely, when leaders consistently recognize effort and values, they model the behavior they want to see in their teams. This alignment creates a ripple effect, shaping the culture from the top down. End quote. People begin to understand that effort and integrity aren't just words in a mission statement. They are lived and rewarded every day. In any environment, from workplaces to families, there's an opportunity to celebrate progress rather than perfection. Progress acknowledges the small wins, the steady improvement, and the hard work put into achieving even incremental change. When people feel their progress is appreciated, they stay motivated even in the face of setbacks. Celebrating progress based on effort and values creates a culture where people focus on the process of becoming better rather than fearing failure. It's important to remember that focusing on effort and values doesn't mean outcomes aren't important. Outcomes will always have a role to play, but they shouldn't come at the expense of the processes and behaviors that sustain long-term success. When effort and values are prioritized, outcomes often take care of themselves because they are built on a solid foundation of trust, integrity, and hard work. People who feel valued for their contributions and guided by shared principles are more likely to collaborate effectively, think creatively, and maintain the consistency needed for sustainable results. Emphasizing effort and values also fosters a sense of fairness. When results are the only metric for success, it's easy for people to feel overlooked or even penalized for circumstances beyond their control. However, when effort and values are recognized, everyone has the opportunity to contribute meaningfully and be appreciated for what they bring to the table. This sense of fairness strengthens relationships, builds trust, and ensures that no one's contributions go unnoticed. Leading by example shows others what behaviors matter most. People are naturally influenced by what they see. Words and directives carry some weight, but actions have a far greater impact. When a leader consistently demonstrates the behaviors they want to see in others, they send a clear and powerful message about what is valued. These actions set the standard and create a ripple effect, shaping the culture of the entire team, family, or organization. One of the most critical aspects of leading by example is consistency. When a leader's actions align with their words, it builds credibility and trust. People are more likely to follow someone who practices what they preach, because the alignment between message and behavior feels authentic. Conversely, when there's a gap between words and actions, it creates confusion and erodes trust. A leader who demands punctuality but frequently shows up late sends a mixed message, undermining the very behavior they claim to prioritize. This kind of inconsistency causes people to question whether the leader truly believes in the principles they are espousing. Leading by example also means demonstrating the values that form the foundation of a group's culture. Whether it's integrity, collaboration, respect, or accountability, leaders have the responsibility to embody these principles in their daily actions. This is especially important in challenging situations, where the pressure to take shortcuts or compromise values may be strong. A leader who chooses to uphold the group's values even when it's inconvenient sets a powerful example that reinforces the importance of those principles. People often look to leaders for cues about how to behave. This isn't limited to formal authority figures. It happens in any context where someone takes on a guiding role or is perceived as having influence. If a leader is collaborative, encourages open communication, and treats others with respect, these behaviors tend to spread naturally. Team members see these actions as a blueprint for how to interact with each other. On the other hand, if a leader disregards input, blames others for mistakes, or acts in a way that's self-serving, those behaviors are likely to be mirrored as well. One of the most impactful ways a leader can lead by example is by showing vulnerability and accountability. It's easy to put leaders on a pedestal, assuming they must be flawless to earn respect. But in reality, leaders who acknowledge their mistakes or uncertainties often earn greater trust and respect. When a leader takes responsibility for a misstep, it creates a culture where others feel safe to do the same. I think everyone has this openness encourages honest communication and a willingness to learn from mistakes, which are crucial for growth and innovation. Another key element of leading by example is demonstrating the work ethic and commitment that leaders expect from others. If a leader values dedication and effort, it should be visible in how they approach their own responsibilities. A leader who is willing to roll up their sleeves and contribute, especially during critical moments, inspires others to do the same. This doesn't mean leaders have to do everything themselves, but their willingness to share the load when needed creates a sense of solidarity and mutual respect. The way leaders treat others also sets the tone for group dynamics. A leader who listens actively, values diverse perspectives, and treats everyone with dignity signals that these behaviors are essential. These small but powerful interactions create an environment of trust and inclusivity. On the other hand, if a leader dismisses opinions, plays favorites, or tolerates divisive behavior, it opens the door for a culture of exclusion, competition, or resentment. People quickly pick up on what's acceptable based on how a leader behaves, even if those behaviors aren't explicitly endorsed. One of the challenges of leading by example is that it requires constant self-awareness. Leaders are always being observed, even in moments when they aren't actively trying to lead. A casual remark, a choice to cut a corner, or even body language during a meeting can send unintended signals about what behaviors are acceptable. This is why self-reflection is such an important part of effective leadership. Leaders need to regularly ask themselves whether their actions align with the principles they want to uphold. Leading by example also requires courage. It's not always easy to embody the behaviors and values you want to see, especially in situations where there may be pressure to compromise. A leader who stands firm in their principles, even when it's difficult, sets a powerful example for others to follow. This courage demonstrates that the group's values are not negotiable and provides a source of inspiration for others to do the same. The influence of a leader's example often extends far beyond the immediate context. People who are inspired by a leader's behavior are likely to carry those lessons into other areas of their lives, from personal relationships to future professional roles. This creates a ripple effect, where the positive impact of leading by example can multiply over time and across different environments. When leaders consistently model the behaviors and values they want to see, they create a blueprint for success. This kind of leadership fosters trust, unity, and a shared sense of purpose. The actions of a leader serve as a silent but powerful guide, shaping the culture and encouraging everyone to strive toward a common goal. The importance of leading by example cannot be overstated, because actions resonate more deeply than words ever could. Positive reinforcement creates a cycle of motivation and engagement. At its core, human behavior is largely influenced by feedback, and positive reinforcement is one of the most effective tools for shaping and encouraging desired actions. By acknowledging and rewarding behaviors we want to see repeated, we provide a clear signal about what is valued and appreciated. This approach not only encourages those behaviors to recur, but also fosters a sense of fulfillment, connection, and purpose. The principle of positive reinforcement is rooted in psychology. When people receive recognition, encouragement, or rewards for their efforts, it activates a natural response in the brain, creating feelings of satisfaction and accomplishment. These positive feelings are intrinsically motivating, prompting individuals to repeat the actions that led to the reinforcement. Over time, the cycle becomes self-sustaining, as the behavior itself is closely tied to a sense of personal reward and intrinsic satisfaction. So it's a noticeable trend, because it's absolutely true that success comes easily to those who do not work hard. In environments where positive reinforcement is regularly practiced, individuals tend to feel more engaged and motivated. Engagement thrives when people know their work or actions are seen and valued. Consider an employee who stays late to ensure a project is completed on time, a student who shows extra dedication to their studies, or a team member who goes out of their way to help a colleague. When these efforts are acknowledged through verbal appreciation, a written note, or a tangible reward, it reinforces the importance of the behavior and encourages the individual to continue acting in the same way. One of the most significant aspects of positive reinforcement is its ability to nurture intrinsic motivation. When people feel that their efforts are recognized, not just for the result, but for the value they contribute, they begin to internalize the behavior as part of their identity. They no longer need external prompts to act in a positive way because the actions themselves become rewarding. For example, an employee who feels consistently appreciated for collaboration may start to view teamwork as a core aspect of who they are, not just something they do for acknowledgement. Positive reinforcement also enhances relationships and strengthens connections within groups. When individuals feel appreciated, they're more likely to trust and support those around them. Leaders who practice positive reinforcement create environments where people feel safe, respected, and inspired. These leaders demonstrate that they see the potential in others and believe in their contributions, which often encourages reciprocal respect and loyalty. Trust becomes the foundation for collaboration, and the culture of the group evolves to prioritize mutual appreciation and shared success. Another benefit of positive reinforcement is its ripple effect. When people observe positive behaviors being acknowledged and rewarded, they are more likely to model those behaviors themselves. This ripple effect can spread quickly, elevating the entire culture of a team, organization, or community. For instance, in a workplace where initiative and creativity are consistently celebrated, others may feel encouraged to step out of their comfort zones and innovate. The recognition of one person's contributions serves as both validation and inspiration for others. It is important to remember that effective positive reinforcement is not about empty praise or rewards for the sake of giving them. Specificity and sincerity are critical components. Vague compliments like "good job" lack the impact of specific acknowledgments, such as, "I really appreciated how you took the time to explain the details of the project. It made a significant difference." This level of detail communicates that the recognition is thoughtful and genuine, making it more meaningful and reinforcing. Timing also matters. Reinforcement is most effective when it happens as close to the desired behavior as possible. Immediate recognition helps solidify the connection between the action and the reward. Delays can weaken the impact, as the individual might not associate the acknowledgement with a specific behavior. However, this doesn't mean that recognition loses all value over time. Appreciating someone's effort at any point is better than not acknowledging it at all, right? Consistency plays a vital role in building a positive reinforcement cycle. When reinforcement is erratic or limited to only a few individuals, it can create an uneven experience that undermines trust and fairness. However, when recognition is distributed evenly and genuinely, it fosters an environment where everyone feels they have an opportunity to contribute and be acknowledged. A culture of positive reinforcement thrives on fairness and inclusivity, ensuring that everyone's efforts are recognized in meaningful ways. It's also a culture that celebrates the victors and rewards the losers. There's a huge emphasis. An often overlooked aspect of positive reinforcement is its ability to address challenges or areas for improvement without resorting to criticism. By focusing on what someone is doing well, leaders, parents, or peers can encourage them to build on their strengths rather than dwell on their shortcomings. For example, rather than pointing out where someone fell short in a task, highlighting an aspect they did well can motivate them to refine their approach without feeling disheartened. This method fosters growth in a way that builds confidence rather than diminishing it. Positive reinforcement doesn't require grand gestures. Simple acts such as verbal praise, written notes, or small tokens of appreciation can have a significant impact. The key is consistency, authenticity, and an understanding of what matters to the individual being recognized. Everyone has different preferences for how they feel appreciated, and tailoring reinforcement to match those preferences enhances its effectiveness. The cycle of motivation and engagement fueled by positive reinforcement creates an environment where people feel valued, connected, and inspired to contribute their best. It reinforces a shared commitment to excellence and growth, ensuring that everyone understands their role in a larger purpose. By prioritizing this cycle, teams, families, and organizations can sustain high levels of trust, performance, and satisfaction over the long term. Because the reality is, whether we know it or not, we're all shaping the world around us. Every word, every action, every choice we make rewards something. The question is, are we rewarding the behavior that builds us up, or are we reinforcing the very things we want to change? The good news is that change doesn't have to start with massive upheaval. It starts with one act, one moment, one conscious decision. Reward someone's courage, celebrate their perseverance, recognize the integrity of someone doing the right thing even when no one's watching. And when you do that, you're changing the starting point for the starting point you want your life to be. Because when you do that, you're not just encouraging good behavior, you're building trust, inspiring growth, and creating a better environment for everyone. So as you go about your day, remember, what you reward will grow. Choose carefully, because your choices don't just shape others, they shape the world. Thank you.